Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk About Real Estate podcast, the podcast for real estate agents absolutely everywhere. I'm Lisa B, and during this podcast, we're going to be talking about everything real estate. What's working, what's not working, AI, automation, technology, eXp Realty, and absolutely everything to do with real estate. I'll have guest speakers as well, where we'll answer your questions from the Facebook group, Let's Talk About Real Estate. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, make sure you do that now, and we'd be happy to help answering any question. And again, welcome to the show. John Kitchens, welcome so much to my Let's Talk About Real Estate podcast.
Such an honor to be here. So cool.
And you are all the way from America. So whereabouts? Whereabouts are you based now?
Well, you were hoping that I was in Texas. Yeah, we had the hat and everything.
I was going to wear the Texas hat and everything, but anyway, it doesn't matter. That's all right. You speak. Yeah.
Born and raised just north of the Texas border up in Oklahoma. So Oklahoma, Texas, pretty much a majority of my life. Had a little stint out in California for a few years, but Pittsburgh, PA is home right now. So it's been a little bit of a change. I got my first northeastern winter in the United States. Never had that experience, and I'm good, right? I can migrate down south now. I'm good. I got that northeastern winter out of my system.
Yeah, good on you. All right. So now today, what I want to talk about is health, wealth, and happiness. But I also want to talk about accountability, responsibility, because a lot of agents will make excuses about things. So if we can sort of tie some of those things into some of the things I'm going to ask you as well. So you're a real estate coach over 20 years in the industry. And so tell me, what have you learned over those 20 years? What's sort of the three biggest things that you've learned in the last 20 years?
There's definitely way more than three. And, I just being 20 years in the industry and, you have your kind of your mile markers that you look at, and you're talking about like Kinder on his organization and rev share pieces. So I walked into the industry in, 20 years ago in October of 04 into an already successful, by definition, successful operation, which was Jay Kinder's office in Lawton, Oklahoma. And I walked in October. We ended up closing out 340 units that year. And I always liken, at the time, Jay was like a go fast motor of a go fast boat on the back of a rowboat is what it was like, right? It was off the rails. And what he was missing was systems and processes, right? He was missing the actual, the framework to keep the train on the tracks. And so I came in an operational standpoint and really been able to streamline, put processes in place, structure with cadence, with rhythm, with communication. And that next year we went to 430 units. And then the year after that, we went to 531, which was 20% market share in our market and got us to number 2 in the world for Coldwell Banker. And so, looking back during that time, I love your health, wealth, and happiness. I have a little different third bucket, and it's relationships, health, wealth, and relationships. And the happiness could also be relationships, right? Because, the most important relationship is the relationship with yourself. And so looking back now, reflecting as a coach in the industry, been coaching for now 13 years in the one-on-one coaching space. I was reflecting, thinking back, man, how would I coach these two knucklehead 27-year-olds in Lawton, Oklahoma? How would I coach us? And, one of the biggest mistakes that we made, and it's a mistake that will set you back, not months, not years, it'll set you back decades. And that's in pursuit of the wrong goal. At the time, being 27-year-olds, wanting to prove ourselves, we were chasing the wrong goal. And the goal we were chasing at the time was status. We wanted to be number 1. And so having a great coach, we had great coaches at the time, but they were coaches on different things, right? They were coaching us on, being able to articulate our value, coaching us on marketing, coaching us on different aspects. But we didn't have somebody to shake us and be like, listen, guys, you're chasing the wrong goal. Because the real goal of business is freedom. And my definition of freedom is 2 things. 1, what is your perfect day? And Frank Kern, there's a great little YouTube video. If you just go into YouTube, type in Frank Kern perfect day, It's about 7 minutes, and he unpacks the perfect day scenario. And it's equivalent of if you had to live Groundhog Day over and over again, it's maybe a typical Tuesday, right? You couldn't do something that is going to kill you, and you can't do something that's going to put you in jail, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be just a typical Tuesday. What does it look like? And what is your freedom number, right? We all have a number, and it's a dollar amount that we have coming in that we're not trading time for dollars, because so many of us right now are dancing bears. If we don't dance, we don't get paid. So we need to be able to put ourselves in a position to where if we just decide to kick it up one day and put our feet back and be like, hey, I'm good for a little while, we ain't got to worry about it, because we have enough money coming in for us to live the life that we want to live and live our perfect day. That's my definition of freedom. And that's, if I was coaching us, that's the first thing I'd have been like, your goal is not the real goal, right? The goal that you guys want to, that's worthy of attacking
So
is get out of status and get after freedom.
significance and ego can get in the way, can't it, of a great business?
So, and there's a little bit of healthy ego that's important, right? For the drive. There's a concept that really resonates, and I put it out there and remind myself, remind clients, I remind everybody of, and it's outcome over ego, because outcome is getting to the goal. Ego is trying to be right, right? And that's what I always tell myself and my team. I was like, listen, guys, I'm not trying to be right. I'm just helping us to get to right. What is right? And so just being really, really, in tune to that. So, first and foremost, make sure you got the right goal. Make sure it's a worthy goal. Make sure it's your goal. And remember, the goal is freedom. And there's mile markers, there's steps along the way, but you got to be in pursuit of that freedom. That would be the overarching thing over, the 20 years that we didn't get right. And if we would have fine-tuned it, if we would have had a great coach that was beating us over the head, said, guys, get out of status, focus on freedom, things would have been a lot different. But you have to travel the road in front of you to get to where you're at. So no regrets in that regard. I would think too, we didn't do a good enough job at probably modeling the behavior and making those other buckets a more of a priority at the time. When we were chasing status, a lot of things suffered, right? We left a wake of destruction with family and health. Kinder was the heaviest I've ever seen him during that time. I was heavier, not in great shape. The relationships were terrible. Drinking every day, not because we were enjoying it, just because we felt like we had to. So I think there's a lot of the dark side of entrepreneurship and business that can really, really tear you apart. And so, the most important thing that we can have is making sure that we're in the right circle. I think that's one of the best exercises that you can do, is really tighten in who is in that inner circle. One of my favorite and one of the best business books in the last couple of years to come out was Patrick Bet-David's book, Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And obviously we want to worthy enemy, but I think the most important exercise out of that book is building your inner circle. And he has a point system out of 6 buckets, and it scores from 0 to 10. And what he talks about, who's worthy enough in your inner circle, they've got to score above a 50. And so when you do the exercise and you do it honestly, you're going to only have 3 or 4 people that are going to make your inner circle. And as you grow and evolve, that circle changes, right? So you got to do the test all the time. And so I would just really, really push people to make sure you're building a life team, not just your real estate team. So like, who's helping you with your relationships? Who's helping you with your happiness? Who's helping you, with your fitness? Who's helping you in all of the areas in your finances? Who's helping you in those areas? And they could either be mentors or coaches. So I think, chasing the right goal, having the right team around you, and, really just those 2 components will get you so far, way down the path. And so I think just a constant audit of who you allow into your space. And, it's easy looking back. I did a great exercise. So 48 now. Did a great exercise, turned 40 to reflect back. What would I tell my 30-year-old self? And then I'll do the same exercise when I turn 50. What would I tell my 40-year-old self? And I think, a couple things. Don't be so damn serious. Don't everything, it's not like, it's not worth it, right? Your kids aren't going to remember the late hours and the things that you put in to be able to provide for them. They're going to remember the times that you weren't there. And so I think, be present, put your priorities in order, and, family, yourself, your health, your relationships, those things are priority first. Then your business priorities come in second. So, long-winded answer, to your question,
Love
but I
it.
think chase the right
Yeah.
goal, chase freedom, make sure you have the right circle around you that are of high character, of high trust. And then just make sure, the priorities of yourself first, and then, your family, your loved ones, then your business,
Love it.
in that order.
I relate to that so much. I did a lot with Tony Robbins. I did Platinum Partners with him years ago, and he did an intervention with me where I was the most messed up in the room as far as my business goals and everything. And it was like, in order to be happy, I must have this. And it was like all of them, and it was so many things
Yeah.
outside of my control. And that changed my life. If I hadn't have gone to that seminar, I think I would have ended up dying of a stress-related disease. I felt it in every
Mhm.
part of me, in my stomach and everything. And so, yeah, exactly what you said is yeah, 100% I
I
relate to
love
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it
Okay.
amazing? I mean, you get into those rooms, right? Like Tony, you don't hear all the stories of all the lives. And I think that he's, positive impact to be able to change. And I
Ah,
think sometimes even ourselves, right? Like we don't really recognize the importance that we have, and the people that are looking to us for inspiration, looking for guidance. And I think that's why we have to be really, really careful, because we are setting an example of what to be and what to follow, or example of
yeah.
what not to be
An
at
example
all
or a
times.
warning. Yeah, you
That's
choose. Hey.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so 13 years of one-on-one coaching. So you've had 17,000 one-on-one coaching sessions. What's the biggest thing you've learned about others while you've been coaching them?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I learned early on, right? I used to take it personal when people would transition out of coaching. And the one thing I had to, always remind myself, coaching has an expiration, right? Very, very few clients. I've been very fortunate enough over the 13 years. I still have a handful of clients that I've been coaching for a decade, and still close to many, many more. And I think, you know, really finding somebody that is really open to not being right but getting to right, that is actually a doer. The most successful clients that I've ever coached are really disciplined. I think discipline is the key ingredient. They have a strong desire, obviously, right? They have a strong desire for what they're wanting to do. They are disciplined, but they trust the process, right? They trust the process, and then they just do the work. I think people that are actually execute, that have a mindset of execution, are the ones that, they keep plugging along, right? They're disciplined, they're consistent. They don't, get blown way high or way low. They
Yeah.
just stay kind of even keel,
Mhm.
stay consistent, keep moving forward. So I think it's that the same thing with our kids, right? We can't want it more than they want it for themselves.
Mm.
That's one of the biggest things. And I think from a coaching perspective, it ain't about me. And it's the whole story brand, the hero and the guide. Like as a coach, um, you have to truly understand that it ain't about you. You're the guide. They're the hero. This is their story. You're trying to help them self-discover where it is that they want to go. And it ain't my agenda. I have proven principles. I can help, make sure that we have a strong foundation for you to build. You still got to do the work, but you got to believe in it.
Mm.
And I think that was one of the things, fortunate enough to learn pretty early on. Because I did take it really personal in the beginning when people would cancel and quit coaching, and I'm like, God dang, okay, it's not about me, it's about them and where they're at in their life, and are they really wanting to continue to push themselves? And the truth is, Lisa, you know this, people get complacent, they get content. You help them get to a certain point and they're good, right? They're interested, maybe a little bit committed, but the ones that really make an impact in their community,
Mhm.
um, are the ones that are obsessed.
For sure.
And very, very few are truly obsessed.
Mm.
And so I think you understand what it is and what's important to them, what they value, and you just help them get there. And not everybody's going to keep pushing. Once they get to a healthy spot, they feel good, they're good. And
So,
that's all you can want for them.
so I'm curious, what's your coaching style? Are you more the type you hit them straight between the eyes if they need to do something? Are you very direct? Say if, for example, a lot of people, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, a lot of people will blame everybody else. They blame their mother, their father, their situation, how they grew up, their wife, their husband, their kids, their situation. Now, what do you say to people when you know that it's excuses? I can put all of those things aside, and I can do whatever I want to do now. I can decide and take steps and move forward in my career in real estate. What
Yeah.
would you say to that person that's hanging on to everything else here and making that the excuse?
I think a couple things. One, most people just aren't problem aware, right? It's like a fish. They don't know anything above the water, right? They know everything below the water, but they don't know there's a whole nother world above the water, until they get out of the water, and then they're like, oh, there's something else up here.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people just are not problem aware. So more of my style is I'm going to help hold up the mirror for you a little bit. Understanding one of my core values is 100% responsibility, zero excuses.
Mm.
So that gets thrown out pretty quick.
Yeah.
One of my book recommendations is Extreme Ownership by Jocko.
Mm.
And if you understand the principles of that book, there is no situation that you couldn't have done something differently. And I think a lot of the questions, for me, more question and helping you self-discover.
Mm.
And is that within your control, right? Control the controllables. Is that within your control? Is that true? Is that absolutely true?
Mm.
And kind of get them to think about it, and they're like, yep, you're right. And so I think they know that I don't allow excuses. So they course correct pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I think what I find too, Lisa, most people that are investing in coaching,
Mm.
right?
They want change.
They want change.
Yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't
They want
invest the
change.
money, would they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned to me in our private chat that you have a unique perspective. Most folks have. I think I do too. So what's your unique perspective?
Yeah, yeah. So, walking into an already successful brokerage in Lawton, Oklahoma. So, Lawton, Oklahoma, we had 531 transactions, over 20% market share, right? There's only about 4,000 total sides in that market. And during the time of that run, our average sales price was about 120,000. Small town, 100,000 in the entire county, Lawton, Oklahoma, military town. So army installation there. So a lot of transit in and out. We have a lot of contractors because of being an army installation, and so we had a lot, right? Different kind of dynamic and everything there. Born and raised Lawton. My dad, Hall of Fame coach. Spent 48 years in the public school system. And so I kind of, growing up there, right? Just so coaching was just hardwired in my DNA. I knew I didn't want to be a teacher because I saw his paycheck. So I knew like, hey, I know there's coaching here somewhere, but I got to find a way that makes sense for me. And so having that small town type of transient, kind of a melting pot type of community,
Mhm.
and then transitioning down to Frisco, Texas, which, kind of during that run when we had the brokerage in there before we shut the brokerage down and came DXP, going into that market, right, to where it is almost impossible to build a brand of name recognition brand. It just takes years or thousands, tens, 20, hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a recognizable brand name in that type of market. So just changing up the strategies for what worked. For us, it was triple the average sales price. Just a whole different animal of trying to build and operate a brokerage. And we were extremely successful. I mean, we hit gas, we hit go and put the gas on it. And within 13 months, I mean, we ramped from a standstill to 2.2 million in revenue, about 221 transactions in just like from a dead standstill. So being able to see that happen and the moves to make, and do you write a big check and go all in on radio or some other type of media, or do you build a call center and go the cold data route? And we chose to go the call center and the cold data route. So just being able to see all of that, also be on the inner workings of building one of the biggest coaching programs in the country at the time, in association. So being able to see that from a coaching perspective, and then you layer in the one-on-one coaching side of things, of being able to have 17,000 one-on-one coaching calls. I'm not quite there, but almost 10,000 hours, right? When the 10,000 hour rule. And this is like, I feel like I'm just almost to hit my stride with coaching, and I'm just about to hit 10,000 hours of coaching. So being able to have that perspective, failing miserably in business, failing miserably in relationships. So, I mean, I get it. And I always joke, I'm like, there's very few situations that I have not either personally dealt with, either from a business perspective in our brokerage, in my real estate career, or coaching.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're shaking your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's like,
I love that though.
wild.
I love having context of things, because
Yeah.
you're more relatable to people. Like, you go through your problems, your situations, you meet somebody that's got that similar thing, you've got the context. And the more experiences you have like that, not that you like it at the time, but then after, I'm grateful that I can then relate to what you're going through. I don't know exactly how you feel, but I do have empathy for and
Yes.
understanding. So, and as you said, if you're going through it with your clients as well, I do a lot of coaching as well. And so, you can sort of relate to them and sort of feel what they're going through. But, your unique perspective, from what I hear, is very much a big picture thinker, which I am too. I love that. I love seeing all the moving parts and how you can do
Have you
things.
taken Working Genius?
Sorry?
Have you gone through the Working Genius
No,
yet?
no,
Oh my gosh. Workinggenius.com. So if you're familiar with Patrick Lencioni,
no.
he wrote The Advantage, Death by Meetings,
Okay.
Ideal Team Player. But
Okay.
he kind of in all of his research, he came across kind of what they found to be your genius, your competencies, and your frustrations.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Happens to spell out widget.
Okay.
And so it's funny that you said that, because you picked up on that right away. So I'm a DW,
Yes.
which means, so if you think about it from, so widget as it goes down. So you think about the airplane is the 30,000 foot in the air, right? So you're 30,000 feet up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the W, right? That's the wanderer.
That's what I
That's
like.
me.
I like looking down on everything. Yes.
Uh-huh. And
Yes.
then as the plane ascends, right, all the way to the ground, tenacity, which is the T in widget,
Mhm.
that's 5,000 foot in the air, right?
Mhm.
Like you're about to land. You can see it.
Mhm.
Tenacity are the people that just get things done. So
Yes.
I'm a DW. So my D is kind of in the middle, but that's discernment.
Mhm.
So I can poke holes at everything, right?
Yes.
So it's great coaches, right? We just
Yeah. Pros and
pick out
cons,
everything.
whatever. Yeah.
But you're saying you can see the big picture.
Yeah.
So that's my W, but I have to be careful, because I'm big here, but I'm also a D. So I'll talk myself out of doing a lot of things.
Yes, yes. But once you understand that, like I understand, I'm a big picture thinker, and I can overwhelm people with it. I can say, you can do this and you can do this and you can do this and you can do this. So I have to kind of contain it in. But I also, sometimes my mind is like, I've got 150 browsers open and all of them are still open. I haven't finished that. But because I know that about myself, I've got to make sure, no, you got to finish that. Stop,
Yeah.
finish it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the hardest thing for me. But
I'm laughing because I've in the background behind the screen here, I've got one of the other pages, and it's got it's got a good dozen tabs open on this one.
I tell you, I've got some great ideas that I haven't done, and
Mhm.
it's like I have to do it. And I know I will one day, but I've got all these other things that I'm doing too. So I've got those there, but
Yeah.
it's just making yourself do it. But no, I actually went to a seminar once and a guy went through all the gifts. It was a speaker training thing, and he went through everyone's gifts in the room. And he said, and yours is big picture thinking. And I'm like, what do you mean? And because I thought everybody did, and he went around the room and everyone was like, no, 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 we don't. And I'm like,
No.
wow. So I never understood that about myself,
Yeah.
which
That's awesome.
everybody's got their gifts, but yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So
Take the
you're
working genius. Yes.
yeah, okay, I will definitely. Okay, so you're an ultra endurance athlete as well. So you've completed three full Ironman and four 100-mile runs, and you've got another one coming up. What's your advice to
Yeah.
somebody that wants to do something like that? I mean, I could never, but yeah.
Uh, yeah.
You look
It's
tired before you start. Oh my God.
it's a
No.
there, I mean, there's obviously reasons why we start doing things. And,
Yeah.
for me being 48, when I was getting ready to turn 40, I just wanted to do something to push myself. My mom passed away 2 months shy of her 40th birthday from breast cancer. I was 11 years old at the time. And, obviously, seeing my dad, obviously I lost my mom, my dad, losing his best friend. And then, my dad remarries for another 20 some odd years and ends up losing her to cancer as well. And so seeing my dad not only have to bury his best friend once, but he had to marry his best friend, two
Oh.
of his best friends. And so I started out on that journey, and I was like, I want to do something, to really push myself. And at that time, the most I had ran was the little 5K beer runs, right? Okay, we'll do that. It's fun. Yeah. The little things like that. But I was like, I want to run a marathon, and not just any marathon. I was like, man, I want to run New York City Marathon. And, I'm slow as a turtle. So it's like, what are you going to do to get in? Well, you can go the sponsorship route. The New York City Marathon is a money maker.
Oh, wow.
And so you have to go through the sponsorship route if you can't qualify.
Mhm.
And and so I ended up stumbling upon the Cancer Research Center in New York, and for Fred's team. And it just like a God thing, right? It was just like, I was like, this is it. So we ended up raising the money and being able to get the ticket, going to run. Took my dad with us. And that was his one and only time he'd ever been to New York City. And on that journey, right, putting in the work, and you get a lot of time to yourself out training. And endurance to me is just a time. You just have to have the time to put in. And for me with him, it became about him. It wasn't, I started it because I was going to try to do something to kind of honor my mom, but it 100% was all about him. And we surprised him. It was his 70th birthday that October, and the race was the first weekend in November. And it was the first in maybe 15, 20 years. His other three siblings, so all four of the siblings were together, and it was the last time they were all together. And it was just really special. And being able to go through that, and that was just kind of the spark, right? That kept it going. It was enjoyable. It meant something. And I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to listen to Jesse Itzler speak. Jesse's probably one of the best speakers from stage. He's just incredible. He's like the Dos Equis guy, right? Him and Matthew McConaughey, they're the Dos Equis guy, right? The most interesting man on the planet. And Jesse won the lottery. He married Sarah Blakely from Spanx, so that's his wife. But he's crazy endurance athlete, just all around incredible guy. And we were listening to him on stage after that marathon, and he said, one of the worst things for us to do as human beings is accomplish a big milestone in our life and not immediately reset the goal. And I was like, got it. It was one of those moments. He was talking to me.
Love it.
4,000 people in the
Yeah,
4,000
but it
people in
was
the room, but
you.
he was talking to me. He was talking to me.
Yeah.
And so that was then down the Ironman path. So we just did first full Ironman,
Cool.
and was going the full Ironman route. And you know what? Pandemic hit, and it was like, are we going to race or we're not going to race? We're going to race. We're not going to race. We're going to race. We're not going to race. I'm like, you know what? I committed to those additional races. Actually, I had committed to two, and we only ended up doing one. And I was like, I'm good. I'm good on that because it comes back to commitment, right? Lisa, I don't believe you commit and figure it out. I believe you figure out what it is you want to accomplish, reverse engineer, and ask yourself, is that something I'm willing to commit to?
Mm.
And I just wasn't no longer willing to commit to it.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what I am willing to commit to? That I can always grab my shoes. I can grab a pair of shorts. I can grab a hat, some sunglasses, a t-shirt, my headphones, and I
Okay.
can go. And I can just go.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, when you start to look at those things, those hard things, you got to make it as convenient as possible to really stick to it. And
And
that's
enjoyable. Do shit you love. Like, yeah, make it
do shit you
enjoyable.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I've learned so much too, Lisa, with it. You know, the thing is when you do hard things, and everybody has their own definition of hard,
Mm.
right? When you do hard things,
Mm.
the trivial things don't matter. You don't make excuses anymore. You don't blame other people for you know your faults
Mm.
when you do hard things.
Mm.
So, you know, I would challenge anybody out there if you're kind of struggling, you know, go find your hard and get after it.
Yeah. Well, there's a hard, do your hard that's going to make you progress, or do the hard that you're making no progress. You know, so you choose
Mhm.
hard, don't you? So, what would you tell, just finally, what would you tell your 58-year-old self?
um That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think, you know, I think learning a lot with patience. I think learning a lot with getting through, like you said, all of the tabs. But what is the one tab that's going to make the most difference in my life right now?
Mhm.
I think less than more. I think more about what should I stop doing instead of what should I start doing. And
Yeah.
so I think growth through elimination for me right now, and the progression over, you know, the next couple chapters over the next 10 years is really narrowing down and really getting into that sweet spot of what, like you said, what do you love and what gives you energy, but also moves the needle in your life, in your business, in your relationships.
And get rid of the things that bring you down. I've been doing that a lot lately, whether it's people, places, things, whatever, things that bring me down, that don't
Yeah.
give me joy anymore, that suck the life out of me.
Yes.
I'm really detoxing from all of that now. And my number one thing is peace, happiness, still
Mhm.
progress, but doing it in a peaceful, happy way. You know, if it's
I need to send you the link. There is the University of Pennsylvania did a study, and my coach had me do this a couple years ago. But when you were talking happiness, so there's 24 character traits that all humans have, but
Mhm.
nobody has the same sequence. Nobody has the same order.
Mhm.
And so what they found two things with happiness, and then we can wrap up. One is you can make more progress in your life by focusing on the things that you're good at instead of trying to improve the things that you're not good at.
Yeah,
And so out of those 24 character traits, focus on your top 5 or 6.
love it.
And it's a pretty extensive assessment. It's like 240 questions that you have to answer. And it then will break down and put them in order. And you'll see the ones that and then you're like, God, you got to go all in. And like, my number one is love,
Mm.
right? And so it's the it's the unconditional love, and it's unconditional love for yourself first
Yes.
before you can have unconditional love for anyone else. And so that is a really awesome understanding, right? The more that you can understand about yourself and what your strengths are, and kind of how you're hardwired, lean in on those instead of trying to improve the things that you're not. And then there was a study done. I forget what university or study did, but what they found is that the couples that had the longest, healthiest, happiest relationships were the ones that focused on micro moments, and those that had the most micro moments throughout the day.
Love it.
And it was essentially about 7 seconds.
Yeah.
And if you could have about 10 to 15 7-second moments every day, that makes you the most happiness.
I
brings you the
make
most joy?
myself do that. I look for beautiful things always. It's like,
Yeah.
there's got to be something beautiful, whether it's a sunrise, sunset, whatever it is. I've trained myself to do that, because when I was back in that time before my Tony Robbins intervention, I remember people saying, oh, stop and smell the roses. I'm thinking, why would you do that? What a waste of time. That's what to do. Why would you do that? So, making myself look for beautiful things, definitely. But when you're saying about your things that you're good at, and sometimes, and I don't know if you've done Tony Robbins, but one of the things with him is, you put your different traits in. It's like, okay, if I focus on that, what will my life look like? If I focus on that, what will it look like? What if I put that one on that top? What will, on top, what would my life look like then?
Yeah.
What if I've got those in those 5 areas in that line? What's it going to look like? And just a little shift of moving those around can change your life completely. And I'm always conscious of those sorts of things as well. But gosh, we need to talk again. Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
For sure.
All right. Well, it's been lovely having you. Thank you so much. And I'll put
Thank you,
details
Lisa.
in the bottom of the video and everything as well. So thank you so much. I really, really
Awesome.
enjoyed that.
Thank you.
It's been awesome. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk About Real Estate podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you have a question about real estate, then please join the group on Facebook, also called Let's Talk About Real Estate. For those of you who are interested in EXP, please join us at 10 a.m. Brisbane time every Wednesday morning for EXP Explained. Thank you again for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and see you next week.